Welcome back from break, everybody. It is your buddy Seep. Today is Monday, November 30th, and this is In Case You Missed Psychology. If you're watching this, obviously you weren't in class today, and hope you're well and hope those around you are well. Hope you had a nice, relaxing break. Were able to eat some good food and get some rest. If you more around people, hopefully you didn't do anything too risky. Socially distanced, wore masks, things like that. Weird. Ugh. It is a Monday after all. All right, guys, so I don't want to keep you very long today, but we're wrapping up the chapter today, so I've got some important things to go through and some things to remind you about. So here we go. A couple of slides to look at today, but reminders. First of all, I handed back a bunch of work last night, and someone said, hey, see if I didn't get any comments on this. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I attached a bunch of feedback to your work and timed it to go out, and I don't know if it's hung up in Google limbo someplace or what's going on, but I apologize if you're looking at your grades on something, you're like, oh, why did I get a 3 on this? If you want to, I'm more than happy to, go through it with you individually. I have that work time from those office hours from 1 to 1:30. So if you wanted to pop in and go, hey, Steve, how come I got a 3 on this thing? I don't see your feedback. I don't know what happened, but it's like hung up in limbo. So like I said, if you want to see how to improve something, please let me know. And I will be more than happy to, help you out with that. All right, late work. Looking through the grade book, I've got a lot of people who owe me things, and obviously that's negatively impacting people's grades. So if there are things you owe me, get those things finished up, get them in, and I will be checking my to review tab in Classroom. When I assign something, I get a tab that says to review, and it lets me know when things have come in. So when I see those, I'll grade those. I did an overall grade re-average for all you guys this weekend, now that I have everything corrected. So check your grades in Infinite Campus. There unfortunately are a handful of people who are not making adequate progress. And so I'm sending out a wave of emails today to let families know how things are going. And if you're on the not making adequate progress list, your email is not going to be as positive, unfortunately. We are going to do a chapter 2 test tomorrow. It is going to be a lot like the last one, and there's going to be a form with some bunch of multiple choice questions and then some short essay type things. So please make sure that you are in class tomorrow and ready to take that. Some of you guys still owe me the first chapter one. That's yeah, come on, man. Seriously. All right. But today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a bunch of different types of methods for collecting data in psychology. And once we get that done, we'll be done for the day. Okay. So here we go. All right. So some other methods of studying things. We talked about ethics. We talked about experiments, different parts of experiments. We've talked about surveys last week. So today what we're going to do is we're going to hit on 6 different kinds of studies, and we're going to spend a little time on each one. But first, we're going to talk about naturalistic observations. By definition, a naturalistic observation is just studying a subject in their natural environment without them being aware of the fact that they're being watched. And so, if you think like about nature shows where they hide cameras in jungles, or, they hide cameras in rocks, and they study ape behavior to see, do they use tools? How do they communicate with each other? If the apes are completely unaware of the cameras and completely unaware that they're being watched, you have a naturalistic observation. Theoretically, when you're at school and in the hallways, you guys have probably hit a point where you don't think much about the cameras in the hallways that are recording your behavior. And so, you're getting a naturalistic observation of how people behave when they're in the hallways. Police in some towns have cameras hooked to stoplights, and people don't think about them. And so you get naturalistic observations of how people behave around intersections. Okay. Obviously, this hinges on the fact, though, that the subject is not aware that they're being watched. Now, obviously, the strengths of this is you get natural behavior. If the subject is unaware that they're being watched or recorded, you are getting that person at their raw, normal behavior without any interference. The weaknesses are many, and this is the reason why this is kind of fallen out of favor in the psychology world. If you think about it, you've probably been in a classroom where a teacher has been getting observed by a principal. We have to get observed like every so often. When that principal comes into the room, normal behavior is off. They're aware that teachers are aware they're being watched. The students are aware people are being watched. The students often act very differently, And during the class, the principal doesn't get to, really ask a bunch of questions, participate in the class, and try to get an idea of what's really happening. And so the weaknesses are, first of all, you get no interaction with the thing. If you're doing a naturalistic observation, watching people in the hallway cameras, and you see somebody do something, you can't walk out and go, "Hey, I was watching you in the hallway on the computer, and I was wondering why you did XYZ thing." Because as soon as that happens, the person knows they're being watched, and you're not going to get that same kind of good behavior moving forward. Because of that, you can also misinterpret things. When you don't know why people are doing the things that they're doing, you try to come up with answers in your mind. You jump to conclusions, you use stereotypes, you use past information about people that doesn't always let you know what's going on. You could also be discovered. It could also be discovered that you're recording people, and there's a whole legality issue with that. But when people just realize they've been recorded, you start to get disingenuous behavior. And then obviously there's the ethics of it. Is it really legal to record people without their knowledge? Is it ethical? Is it okay? And so these have kind of fallen by the wayside because the questions and the weaknesses seem to outweigh the strengths. Next, obviously, is the interview. Now, the interview is commonly used. A lot of you guys have been job interviewed. You've been interviewed by newspapers or news stations. Some of you guys have been interviewed by principals, by teachers, by various things. And so an interview is studying people face-to-face and asking questions. Now, if you notice, that definition isn't that different from the definition of a survey. The difference is interviews are done face-to-face or via some kind of technology like this or the phone. And so you are getting direct interaction and you know who the person is. Interviews are not generally anonymous. Now, obviously, one of the other benefits to an interview is you can ask a question, where surveys will ask a question and that's it. In an interview, I can ask a question and then ask for more detail or keep probing further by asking more questions to learn more and more and more. Obviously, some strengths, you can obtain personal and detailed information about people through those questions. If you write good questions, if you ask good questions, you can learn a lot about a person, their problem-solving approach, how they'll help you in the business that you're running if it's a job interview. The weaknesses is the subject could be dishonest. You don't know if someone's telling you the truth or not. You have no idea if they have computer experience. You have no idea if they have one or two siblings. You have no idea if you're getting the truth. The other thing that can come into play with these is bias. The interviewer themselves can have bias towards someone. If someone walks in looking a particular way or has, I don't know, a neck tattoo, let's say, or it turns out they're from the same town that you're from, or they worked at a business that you used to work at, you might have a positive or negative bias that may impact the way that you think about that person, regardless of how they're asking or answering the questions. You might even there might be racial issues, stereotypes, gender bias, all these different things that can come into play. And the other thing is, obviously, in interviews, people stage their behavior. They know they're in an interview situation. They know that they're trying to get a job. They dress a certain way. They make sure that they're on time. They're prepared with documents if need be. In some cases, they know the type of questions that they're going to be asked, and so they'll rehearse the answers. And so you're not truly getting probably as genuine a behavior as you would hope for. Case studies are very similar. This is where someone is I'm going to read you the definition of this one. A process or a record of research in which detailed consideration is given to the development of a particular person, group, or situation over a period of time. It is usually part interview and part data collection over a time period about something for medical care, psychological study. You technically all have a case study on you in the office, all your standardized test scores and things like that. But we're collecting information about a person over a long period of time for some purpose, educational purpose, medical purpose, mental health issues. The advantages, obviously, if we collect data over a long-term period, we're finding patterns in behavior. We're seeing that, this kid got in a lot of trouble up until 5th grade, and then we see that they went and they got diagnosed with ADHD and are on medication, and then things really turned around for them. Or criminal records, we see that this person has a history of theft, or medical records, this person has a history of abdominal problems. And so we're looking for patterns. And we're also seeing a person's problem-solving approaches. How is it that they deal with trouble when trouble comes up? How do they deal with, with issues? Okay. The disadvantages, again, there can be bias. The person who is running the case study or looking at the things can can jump to conclusions about people based on their own personal bias. If you think that kids that struggle on standardized test scores aren't smart, and you're a teacher and you're looking at standardized test scores and you're like, this isn't a very bright kid. That's not always true. Standardized test scores are a moment in time. They're often disingenuous in the amount of stuff that they collect. People can also be dishonest. Again, a lot of things in case studies are done via forms people fill out or interviews that are done. You don't necessarily have to tell the truth. You can wiggle around things. And then people, when they look at case studies, have a tendency to generalize. Someone comes into you and talks about having a history of depression. You have this stereotype or generalization of what that means or what that looks like. And so you're going to treat that person a certain way based on those things. Again, more kind of just a different kind of bias. All right, last slide for the unit. Now, by the way, if you get bored, you can try and figure out which one, A, B, C, D, E, or F, is the right answer. And I'll tell you at the end of the slide. Okay, so last three tests, you have cross-sectional studies. And this is where we're looking at how something impacts people over time, are usually cross-sectional and longitudinal studies and how they're used. In cross-sectional studies, what we're going to do is we're going to do one single test. We're going to study people from various age groups all at the same time. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the impact of smoking cigarettes on people. And so we're going to take some people who are between the ages of 15 and 20, and we're going to test that smoke. We're going to test them. 20 to 25, test them. 26 to 30, so on, every 5-year gap. And we're going to look at them, and we're going to measure their pulse oxygen level. We're going to take x-rays of their lungs. We're going to do all these things. And we're going to compare the different age groups to each other in this variable or this trait that we're looking at. Now, obviously, I hit enter oddly. Sorry about that. It's weird. The strengths, they're quick. You can study all these various age groups at one time and you're done. Okay, no problems. That makes it less expensive. And obviously, the data is also easily interpreted because you can look at the group from 26 to 30 and go, here's what we see pulse ox-wise. Here's what we see lung development-wise. Boom, boom, boom. Here's what we've learned. Okay. The weaknesses, you're comparing apples to oranges is what I like to say. Is if we did an intelligence test and we had all these different groups of people, all these age groups of people take an ACT. We had you guys take an ACT. We had your parents take an ACT. We had your grandparents take an ACT. We had a 100-year-old take an ACT. We're comparing different eras. We're comparing different learning styles. We're comparing different expectations. I mean, if you think about it, what you guys are taught in school now is very different than what your parents were taught. They may have taken algebra, but they may not have had that till the junior year, whereas you have it as like 7th and 8th graders now. And so you're comparing apples to oranges rather than comparing the same person to themselves over time. You're comparing person A to person B to person C to person D and trying to figure out what those things mean. And so that's why we have longitudinal studies where we study the same group of subjects over a long period of time. And so what we're going to do is, instead of giving you the ACT, giving your parent the ACT, giving your grandparent, giving people at Sienna Crest an ACT, we're going to test you now, and we're going to test you every 5 years until you hit, 75, let's say, 76, 77, whatever age you are. Okay, we're going to test you every 5 years, and so we're going to compare you to you. If our hypothesis is that people's reading ability drops as they get older, okay, we're going to test you at 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, so on and so forth, and we're going to compare your test scores to you, okay? And so the strengths is you're comparing apples to apples. I'm comparing you to you to you to you to you over time. And so I'm going to get accurate data, but the weaknesses are it's really time consuming. Am I going to start doing a reading study about what you guys are going to look like at 75, knowing darn good and well that I'm not going to be here to see the end of the study? And also, obviously, these things can be expensive because you're stretching out the study over a long period of time. I'm responsible for getting you to a similar testing facility and all those things. I have to pay for all these other variables. So this can be really tough. Last but not least, the psychological test. These are objective methods for assessing like cognitive and emotional development in kids and adults. Personality tests, IQ tests, things along those lines. Now, one of the things I have to mention here is the word objective. Because I don't know if you guys know what that means. If something is objective, that means we can attach a score to it, and we know what that score means. That score is consistent. Objective is different than subjective. Subjective is just where it's kind of an attitude or opinion-based thing. Like if I said, do you think this person is cute? That's subjective. If I asked you on a scale of 1 to 10, is this person cute? And you said they're a 7, that's still subjective because that's going to be different. Now, if I said on the STAR reading test, you tested it as an 11th grade second month reader, that's objective because there was a method that was used to get that score, and that same method was used consistently from person to person. Okay. And so psychological tests are used to collect data in a lot of different ways. People that have been tested for ADHD, there's a psychological test they have you take. You guys have been psychological tested many times. Any standardized test you guys take, from the ACT to the STAR to the MAP to when you were little, you took a test called the Dibbles where they tried to get your reading scores. Those are all psychological tests. The strengths, they provide really accurate information on what that test is testing. And so if you tested it as an 11th grade second month reader on the STAR test, that means according to STAR, that's where you are. If you test as a 5th grade reader according to STAR, that's where you are. Doesn't necessarily mean that if you took iReady or some other MAP test, you would come up with the exact same score. But in that particular area, you are getting the accurate thing. If you take an IQ test, and this one question I have on the slide is a question from an IQ test. They would measure how fast you solve it, how accurate you are, and they would use that to help figure out your final score. That is going to be very accurate for that image, that puzzle. The weaknesses is they're limited, okay? Like for instance, if you take the ACT and you score a 12, okay, you score, all the different areas, you score an 11 or a 13, and your average composite score is a 12. Does that mean you're not smart? It doesn't. Maybe you can repair a car without even thinking about it. Maybe you can make the most beautiful cheesecakes ever made to man that literally melt in people's mouths and bring them nothing but joy. Does that mean you're not smart? I mean, I test really well on standardized tests, but I can't make macaroni and cheese without reading from a box. Okay, I don't know how to I can change my own oil and I can change the battery and I can change the tire, but I can't do anything else when it comes to a car. I'm useless. I can't speak Spanish. Okay, I don't speak any other language fluently but English, and sometimes I don't even think I speak that well. And so the weakness is it's really limited in the results. Okay, the results only tell you certain things. Now, before I let you guys go, the answer to the just a few more question over there is F. Now, if you're wondering how I came up with F, and I know it's the right answer, is that what we're looking for is box A, the first column on the left, and box B, the column in the middle. You're comparing those two things together. In C, the box to the right, the lines that are different from each other show back up, and the dots that are the same. And so if you look at it again, the lines that are different in we'll do it this way. A and B, okay? All right, again, A and B, the lines that are different are repeated in C, and the dots that are the same. So the answer is F. All right, test tomorrow, late work, check your grades, all that kind of fun stuff. Have a great afternoon. See you later, my friends.